Curious about how the dairy sector is stepping up for a sustainable future? Join us for a thought-provoking session as we explore how the International Dairy Federation and the global dairy industry are making impactful strides towards sustainability, food security, and climate resilience. International Dairy Federation and the global dairy sector's contribution to sustainability. Dr. María Sánchez, Science and Standards Program Manager, Swedish National Secretary for International Dairy Federation, 26th June 2025, 7 p.m. onward. Register now and be a part of shaping a greener agricultural future. Let's transform the dairy sector together. Curious about how the dairy sector is stepping up for a sustainable future? Join us for a thought-provoking session as we explore how the International Dairy Federation and the global dairy industry are making impactful strides towards sustainability, food security, and climate resilience. International Dairy Federation and the global dairy sector's contribution to sustainability. Dr. María Sánchez, Science and Standards Program Manager, Swedish National Secretary for International Dairy Federation, 26th June 2025, 7 p.m. onward. Register now and be a part of shaping a greener agricultural future. Let's transform the dairy sector together. Curious about how the dairy sector is stepping up for a sustainable future? Join us for a thought-provoking session as we explore how the International Dairy Federation and the global dairy industry are making impactful strides towards sustainability, food security, and climate resilience. International Dairy Federation and the global dairy sector's contribution to sustainability. Dr. María Sánchez, Science and Standards Program Manager, Swedish National Secretary for International Dairy Federation, 26th June 2025, 7 p.m. onward. Register now and be a part of shaping a greener agricultural future. Let's transform the dairy sector together. Curious about how the dairy sector is stepping up for a sustainable future? Join us for a thought-provoking session as we explore how the International Dairy Federation and the global dairy industry are making impactful strides towards sustainability, food security, and climate resilience. International Dairy Federation and the global dairy sector's contribution to sustainability. Dr. María Sánchez, Science and Standards Program Manager, Swedish National Secretary for International Dairy Federation, 26th June 2025, 7 p.m. onward. Register now and be a part of shaping a greener agricultural future. Let's transform the dairy sector together. Curious about how the dairy sector is stepping up for a sustainable future? Join us for a thought-provoking session as we explore how the International Dairy Federation and the global dairy industry are making impactful strides towards sustainability, food security, and climate resilience. International Dairy Federation and the global dairy sector's contribution to sustainability. Dr. María Sánchez, Science and Standards Program Manager, Swedish National Secretary for International Dairy Federation, 26th June 2025, 7 p.m. onward. Register now and be a part of shaping a greener agricultural future. Let's transform the dairy sector together. Curious about how the dairy sector is stepping up for a sustainable future? Join us for a thought-provoking session as we explore how the International Dairy Federation and the global dairy industry are making impactful strides towards sustainability, food security, and climate resilience. International Dairy Federation and the global dairy sector's contribution to sustainability. Dr. María Sánchez, Science and Standards Program Manager, Swedish National Secretary for International Dairy Federation, 26th June 2025, 7 p.m. onward. Register now and be a part of shaping a greener agricultural future. Let's transform the dairy sector together.
Hello everyone and good evening. It is my pleasure to welcome you all to today's Pre-Symposium webinar series, organized as the part of the International Symposium on Agriculture and Environment, ISAE 2025. I'm Sumali Fernando, the convener of today's webinar, and I'm delighted to have you all with us today. ISAE 2025, hosted by the Faculty of Agriculture, University of Ruhuna, Sri Lanka, is set to take place on 2nd September this year at the Golfes Hotel, Colombo. This year, we are excited to focus on the theme, driving innovations in agricultural technologies for climate action and sustainability. At the moment, abstract submission for ISAE 2025 has been closed, However, if you are still interested in participating in ISAE 2025, we warmly invite you to visit our official website to find information about registration. Now, let me extend a very warm welcome to our distinguished speaker, Dr. María Sánchez, who will be sharing her insight today on International Dairy Federation and the global dairy sector's contribution to sustainability. Dear Dr. María, we are honored to have you with us today. And also, I would like to warmly welcome Professor Nilantha Liyanage, our moderator and my senior colleague for today's session. Professor Nilantha is a renowned academic and experienced organizer of international events. He also served as the coordinator of ISAE 2017. And heartfelt thank you to all our local and international participants who have joined us today. We truly appreciate your presence and hope this session will be both insightful and engaging. So without further delay, I would like to invite Professor Nilantha Liyanage to continue the session. Thank you, and over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sumali, and welcome everyone for the presentation on pre-webinar, presentation on yeah, sorry, I'm sorry. Give me 1 second. Yeah, on science and standards. Yeah, it's my duty to introduce Dr. María Sánchez, actually. So let me introduce her. Maria, welcome you for the presentation today. Maria is is a food scientist and a veterinarian, and she is IDF scientific program manager since May 2016. Her focus is on the IDF area of sustainability and standards. She manages the IDF scientific program on animal health and welfare, farm management, antimicrobial resistance, environmental and sustainability, as well as the areas of dairy science and technology. A very interesting area, I think she will be covering today. And yes, Maria, I think now we will take some time to discuss after your presentation. And it's over to you, Maria, for your wonderful presentation. Yes, it's over to you now.
Thank you very much, Professor Nilantha, for inviting IDF and myself to this pre-symposium. So I'm going to explain you a little bit about IDF and why are the leading voice of the global dairy sector and the connection to the sustainability of the dairy sector. Sorry. So IDF is a quite old organization, first founded in 1903. So we have more than 120 years of existence. It was founded during the first Congress in Brussels. So you see there more or less in the center of the map. Brussels is now it's situated in the capital of Europe. And it was founded to discuss the first topics related to especially food safety and quality, because at that time, 120 years, those were the really important topics for the dairy sector. And the IDF began to generate standards and practices in dairy production, processing and trade, etc. Today, we have around 40 members, with the inclusion of the last members that have been Argentina and Spain. And we are represented in all the continents, as well as Senegal that also recently joined. And we represent 75% of the global meat production of the formal market. IDF is the main voice, as I said in the previous slide, of all stakeholders on the dairy sector, and it represents many organizations. So when I say that it represents all the actors of the chain, like it says here, it is because we include dairy farmers, processors, national dairy organizations, academics, so personnel from the research centers, as well as the connection with the government, the ministers of agriculture or other ministers, suppliers, and employees within the dairy sector. Yeah, so IDF works with the dairy sector because globally we have, let's say, more or less the same challenges, but we need to apply local solutions to achieve the successful those challenges. IDF is based really on peer sharing, and there's a cross-discipline work with many generations included. We work with the latest science, and we have the expertise of the field of dairy. Just to show you a little bit what is the output of IDF. So you can see in this slide, this was, for example, the 23-24 IDF program of work that was delivered. What did you see from IDF coming out? So we published 10 bulletins and reports, so technical content, 26 events and technical webinars, 35 contributions to international organization submissions, 5 new joint IDF ISO standards, and 13 fact sheets. So it's a lot of work that IDF does for the dairy sector in all those areas. How is IDF organized? Well, IDF works with some formal groups that we call standing committees and task forces. We have a very dynamic program of work. At the moment, we have 150 different projects or initiatives, call it like you want. More or less, we add around 20. Last year was around 20 that we added every year, and 12 were finalized and 8 items were completed. And on the right side, you have the different names. SC is Standing Committee of, and you have the different topics that we have. So we have 15 of them. Now I wanted to talk a little bit about what is important to be resilient for sustainability for the dairy sector. In Paris last year, in October 2024, at the IDF World Dairy Summit, the IDF, together with the FAO, signed this IDF Paris Dairy Declaration on Sustainability. And it calls all the members of the dairy sector to commit to the actions to progress on sustainability. And it's actually a next step from previous commitments that the dairy sector has already taken, starting with the Global Agenda for the Dairy Action. Then it was created DSF, the Dairy Sustainability Framework, a little bit later, to progress on sustainability indicators. 2016, this is when I started in IDF, we signed the Dairy Declaration of Rotterdam. There was a specific initiative for pathways to dairy net zero in 2021 and the Global Methane Pledge 2022. So this is like a continuation. It's a bit broader because it's all sustainability areas, not only on climate. And we have called all the stakeholders of the dairy sector to commit achieving these SDGs, and they have to publicly commit themselves with quantified and timetable objectives. So, yeah, it was, as I said, it's based on the previous commitment that we took, and we have now collected a lot of information on different areas: health, nutrition, natural resources, stewardships, economic security, growth, climate change, etc., from all dairy operators, companies, groups, farmers, organizations. What are they doing to advance sustainability? And we will be measuring the engagement of those. Okay, so I'm going to tell you another thing what IDF does, what is very resilient. So, and why we started, we also started 130 years working on standards, because IDF facilitates production, services, and processes, and we collaborate with many international organizations to the development of standards. So what is a standard? A standard is when there's a voluntary agreement between different parties to respect one process, usually, or product. And we document this consensus with some methodology. We work with standards with many international organizations. You have some pictures on the right. So with ISO, we have a joint program of work on the program of methods of analysis for milk and dairy products. But we also work on other standards such as animal health, welfare, or environment. IDF has also very strong collaboration with the Codex Alimentarius. For example, on the use of dairy terms, there's a specific action on the guidelines for water use and reuse, nutrition, front of pack labeling, additives, etc. But we also work with other organizations, such like the World Organization for Animal Health. They publish standards for animal health that are applied, let's say, by their local veterinary services, and that they have also very important impact on the trade. So, yeah, production, the processing and the trade of milk products, it's a global activity. And this standardization actually represents ensured a level playing field and fair trade for any of the dairy farmers and processors producing dairy around the world, the laboratories, the international authorities, equipment test manufacturers, researchers, and as well as the codex alimentarius. I'm going to talk a little bit about our specific collaboration we have with ISO, so that you understand, because ISO was founded in 1963, and we are collaborating since day one, and since 2001, we are collaborating doing these joint standards for the dairy sector. At the moment, we have around 200 standards published on dairy, and those standards are also very important because they are adopted immediately to the Codex Committee. So 60 of them have been adopted already by the Codex Committee. So this way we work really together. There is a harmonization procedure between IDF and ISO. So let's say even if the topic can be proposed in ISO, sometimes the work is performed with the experts of IDF. So there's a really harmonized joint procedure, and there is consensus at expert level and within member countries for stronger impact. So this is also really related to sustainability, because without standards, there is no trade, and trade is part of sustainability. What do we do else in sustainability, IDF? IDF also covers economic sustainability. We have two major sources of information that we produce. The first one I put here is on the left, is a webinar that we just did a few days ago. It's called the World Dairy Situation Report. It's a document that we publish every year, and it was a webinar special for this publication focused on Chile, where the idea World Dairy Summit will take place. And you will be able to purchase this document, World Dairy Situation, or have it as if you're an attendee of our conference, and it provides all the information on production and consumption on dairy products worldwide yearly. On the economic sustainability, what we also monitor is the marketing trends, the consumption, and the different changes on consumer use around the dairy sector, and it's also a very interesting publication. Okay. Then I'm going to continue a bit about environmental sustainability. Maybe this is a part that interests you more. IDF is also very well known to be working on this part. And I'm going to talk about a little bit about the LCA development in the last decade. So on the left here, you have a picture, maybe it's not very sharp, but this is the first assessment of the LCA of milk that was published in 2000. So this is more than 20 years ago. And today, if you go to a research page, you will see that there are more than 5,000 studies that have been published on LCA. So it's a really huge number and shows you the importance of the topic. On the second, livestock long shadow, is the report from FAO that was published in 2006. And that brought really the attention to the global focus of warming and the contribution of livestock. So, following this one in 2006, in 2010, FAO launched this third document. It's called Greenhouse Gas Emissions from the Dairy Sector. And here we have the figures that we're usually using to indicate the greenhouse gas emissions produced for dairy. So we said that the dairy sector accounts for 4% of total greenhouse gas emissions. That also includes the beef. Or 2.7% if you look only at dairy products. On the right side, you have the last guide. So it's the climate change and the global dairy cattle sector from 2019. That evaluates the greenhouse gas emissions from 2005 to 2015, and whose main takeaway was that during those last 10 years, we could see in the global scale that the greenhouse gas emissions per liter of milk was reduced by around 10%. So they were like really good news. Okay, now let's look at the methodologies that we have been using and what are we doing in this space. On the left, you have the first methodology that was published by IDF. It was published in 2010. And it was done with the active participation of FAO at the moment and the SAI platform, Sustainable Agricultural Initiative, that was working between B2B. And it was the first time that the dairy sector went together and state how should we calculate the carbon footprint of dairy. 5 years later, in 2015, the guide was updated, now called a common carbon footprint approach for the dairy sector. And this document was kind of the source of main inspiration for the FAO document on the right, Guide for Environmental Footprint of Large Ruminants from FAO. And those guides also influence a very important document at the European level. There is called the Environmental Footprint of Dairy, that was published a few years later, Product Environmental Footprint of Dairy Product, and that has been also recently updated. I think in this February was recently updated. So there are a lot of standards on how you should calculate the environmental impacts of dairy, but all these guidelines are more or less aligned and they reflect everything that has been proposed in the IDF document. Now let's look a bit at the recent things. 2022, we launched this new guide on the left. This is called the IDF Carbon Footprint Standard for the dairy sector. And we did this with collaboration with more than 50 experts coming from different countries, 17 different countries. The purpose of the guide was to support the dairy sector mitigating greenhouse gas emissions, and also, with the aim obviously to reduce the potential impact on global climate change. So this guide guides you from all the dairy it guides you on the reporting from all life cycle stages. So both from farming, manufacturing operations, and everything within the dairy value chain. At the same time, we published this methodology, and in 2002, there was a second document. It was published at the IDF World Dairy Summit in India, called the IDF C6, or Carbon Sequestration Methodology, to quantify the above and below ground carbon using LCA and carbon footprinting studies. And it complements also a document that was published by FAO at that time, that was the FAO guidelines on carbon stock. So it provides recommendations and steps to perform soil organic carbon sampling, and these are not covered in the IDF guide, so it really complements our piece of work. Okay, so what did we do this year? One of the most recent things that we published is that in 15th of January this year, we published what we call version 1.0 of the LCA verification tool. And it's used to verify that users or tool providers have aligned well when making their tool with the IDF carbon footprint methodology. So it's a self-assessment document, Excel file, that you can do yourself for external auditors. And if you want to see the file, it's actually a free download. You see the website down, fieldidf.org, or work environment updates on life cycle assessment. You go there and you will find the Excel document that you can download. And now, if you want a lot more information on how we should do this, we did a webinar, as well as we did a webinar on the guide. And on that website, you'll find the recording, and you can see how it works and how can you match your tool with the LCA tool. Okay. So what we're also doing IDF, so apart from obviously the emissions, that an LCA that is a bit like the negative impact that we want to mitigate. We're also working with a framework called the Ecosystem Services Framework, because the dairy sector provides many benefits, let's say, to society, and a lot of also these services sometimes, but many services. So we published together, well, with the FAO LEAP group on ecosystem services. Is called this guide on the right side that is on green. It's called the Ecosystem Services Assessment in Livestock Agro Ecosystems. And there you can find different approaches and assessment methods for ecosystem services. They are classified in 4 types, right? Provisioning, so these are the products obtained from the ecosystem. The livestock sector and the dairy sector provides also regulating services. For example, we help on the pollination, climate regulation, disease control, etc. In some countries, they provide a very strong cultural service. So these are non-material benefits that people obtain from the ecosystems, as well as all of them, they're supporting other services. So they are necessary for the production and maintenance of all other ecosystem services: primary production, soil formation, nutrient cycling, water, biological diversity, etc. So you can see here on the slide a collection of all the different documents that IDF has provided to help reduce the environmental impacts. Either there is carbon footprint, sequestration, eco-friendly and dairy-saving dairy technologies, etc. Water footprint. And the last, then we are working at the moment on updating the IDF water to footprint methodology that you will see in green. And this will be probably published next year. So there will be a new update on that. So sustainability, in most of the countries, so at the moment, I don't know if you have already some data, but dairy production is increasing in, let's say, warmer climates, because these are maybe like low and middle income countries where agriculture still needs to ramp up to provide food for all those populations, and that's where dairy production is increasing. So supporting animal health and welfare is going to be key to increase productivity and achieve sustainable dairy sector, right? So IDF is also working very strongly to support this part of animal health and welfare. We work a lot, for example, on adder health, and here I'm just putting some material that we recently did. So we have a very strong commitment to antimicrobial resistance agents in dairy production and provide guidelines. There is a revision that will come out soon by IDF, FAO Codex, WO, as well as collaboration with ILRI on how the dairy sector should use prudently the antimicrobials that are out there. And we're also working, for example, now on a project called Guidelines on Selective Dry Cow Therapy. So how should we dry cows? How should we treat mastitis? What is the guidance that is best for the farmer economically and best for the animal, etc.? There's a big broad of work that we do in this area, so I will not have time to talk to you, but I just know that this is really like the key pillar that will allow developing countries or developing economies to achieve a sustainable dairy sector. We have a publication yearly called the Animal Health Report, and it's usually thematic. This year is going to be focused on biosecurity, and you can find what initiatives are done by the different countries and get inspiration. One of the last pieces of information that we published, it's called the Bulletin 534, Managing Heat Stress in Dairy Cattle. This is a picture that appears in this document. And it's like it provides a forecast on, of course, on the climate change and how this is going to impact the dairy sector. There's a chapter that we wrote together with IFCN and provides an economic estimation on like the losses that a dairy farmer can have if you don't apply heat mitigating practices, as well as the potential economic benefits. And then it proposes mitigation solutions that are adapted to the different latitudes and different types of farming that you can apply. So because you see actually in those areas in red, there are going to be there's going to be a higher increase on climate stress and heat stress. Those areas will be really important to be focused on improving animal health and welfare and farming practices to increase production. We work a lot with the farmers. IDF is really like a forum for farmers worldwide, especially farmer leaders. And we have different tools for them. So we have, of course, technical work that we do, for example, on ISO. This Hasi knows very well. So we try to, here is like a revision of a standard on how the milking machines should be set, right, for the dairy sector to work properly and create a standard for those milking machine producers. And then we also have a different forum where the farmers can discuss about their topics of interest. So there's a podcast called the Pathways to Dairy Farming. You can find it in Spotify. And for our members, we also produce what we call farmer roundtables, that either physical meetings or virtual meetings, where we will discuss topics of their interest, various topics, of course, climate and succession and all those that are interested in farming, and give ideas to each other on how to improve. What about nutrition? Because nutrition is part of sustainability. So we are working in IDF at collecting dietary guidelines around the world and how do these reflect the inclusion of dairy, right? Because it has a very important impact on a balanced diet and health overall. Yeah, most of these guidelines, they emphasize the importance of dairy. We have very good nutrients such as calcium, vitamin D, iodine, potassium, and protein. And it's really commonly recommended for its role in supporting bone health, teeth, muscle health, and as well as cardiometabolic and gut health. So you can find this on the IDF website if you go to the part of nutrition to support as well, like the nutrition side of sustainability and why should we work on that. There's also something quite interesting what we work on is that we have a collection of data on information on school milk. And we published recently, I think it was last year, a new bulletin. It's called The State of Milk and Milk Products in School Milk Programs Worldwide. And you can find an in-depth analysis on data on a survey that we did in IDF. And it provides some highlights. So here is just on the right, some highlights, but over more than 210 million children in 104 countries, they are benefiting actually from the inclusion of milk and dairy products in school feeding initiatives. So it does not only provide nutrition, but also contributes to education, let's say, because it's an incentive for parents or children to attend school. And dairy foods can also be very versatile in dairy schools. And even though most of the countries they provide liquid milk and yogurt and cheese, they adapt to the cultural realities. And they have as well low fat options and whole fat and free fat. So this is also something we do to support nutrition worldwide from children. Safety is one of the pillars of IDF. We have 4 pillars and food safety is one of them. And IDF is engaged in preventing approach for the safety of the dairy sector. And we start working on this with the implementation of good hygienic practices at the different points of the dairy chain. We work on this with all our experts. It's a really wide network. And we try to share the knowledge and the best practices to mitigate the different risks along the dairy chain. Milking practices, good agricultural practices, manufacturing, transformation of raw milk, etc. A lot of them are transformed into international joint standards for analytical methods, or we collaborate with other organizations. So here, for example, you have on the top a paper showing the ecology of Listeria monocytogenes and its significance in dairy production. That it was just recently published. On the right, heat treatment of milk. It's a technical information that provides a very comprehensive overview. There was a paper on that we do often is the inventory of microbial food cultures with safety demonstration of fermented foods. Actually goes beyond dairy for those starter cultures, etc. So IDF is also a peer network. We try to do scientific conferences where people can exchange knowledge. For example, I'm just showing here on the left one that was recently done now in May. In 2025, we had a scientific conference on dairy drying technology and recombined milk products, and it was a success. Around 300 participants and international scope, everything about drying, and it was like really interesting, organized by IDF jointly with the GIGASC in Ireland. We have a standing committee on dairy science and technology, and they provide a lot of information. On the right is an exercise they did. It's called the milk tree technology and use. You can find this diagram on the different subproducts that you can obtain from the dairy sector. Something that their members, they like a lot. So now that I say how IDEA works with the dairy sector, I'm gonna briefly talk to you how IDEA works for the dairy sector, because we serve the dairy sector, grounding our approach in science-based evidence. And we deliver these messages at international and national levels through the national committees. So, for example, we have a national committee in India, and they also help a lot. We do a lot of advocacy. So all the science, we try to interconnect everything between economic, environmental, and social factors. We bring knowledge and expertise to the decision makers, and we influence the policy through recommendation and methodologies. So how do we work? When IDF puts a science-based or consensus position, thanks to all these experts and scientific, IDF Secretariat, because it's observer organization to all those, can submit a submission. IDF submission is a position. But we also send the information to all the national committees, so all those countries that are members of IDF, they receive our recommendation, and they themselves, through their ministers, can submit a position. As well as other organizations, we share the position and they also submit it. And this is very important. We have, for example, how we work. These are some of the UN agencies or related agencies to the UN. We have the UNEP, we have the UNEA, so the environmental program, the environmental assembly where we participate. And we also participate in the consultations from the WHO. Here a bit on the left on the squares, you have things that we provided last year. Also FAO, we have a very strong collaboration. We work with the LEAP program, Pathways to Dairy Net Zero, the Conference of the Global Livestock Transformation. We have a very joint work program with Codex Alimentarius, who is the interlink between the agencies of WHO and FAO. Also from the World Organization of Animal Health. We usually participate at their meetings. We are invited as speakers. We revise their standards, and they actually call us when they need more specific information in the dairy sector. Just to show you the importance of IDF again. Actually, 1903 was IDF founded. 1947 ISO, we started our collaboration in 2001, doing the joint standards. 63, the Codex Alimentarius was founded, and it was actually created, copied the structure and organization of the IDF. So we were actually the main source of inspiration for those people who created all the Codex structures. And then we have also been working very much with the World Trade Organization and standardization of methods and products. As I said, Codex is also very important for sustainability because it's really important for trade. You can see that we work in the different committees of Codex. These are every little gray box is one of the committees. And inside you have some words on the topics that we are working. So on the left, for example, we are working for the general standard for the use of dairy terms and also milk and milk product standards and so on. So if you want to have more information on this slide, you can contact us and we will tell you how we're working on these different topics. So on the right, for example, we have as well working on the potential work on camel milk, etc. And of those, I wanted to highlight one of the pieces of work that we are doing on water is the use and reuse of water. So there's a Codex Committee on Food Hygiene. They have produced general guidelines and they have a specific annex for dairy. So IDF, they have requested IDF to develop guidance for the dairy sector, address indicators for hygiene as well as chemical quality. And this we will do it because it's not covered in this Codex work. And our relationship is so strong that the Codex Secretariat had asked IDF to be co-lead of the working group. So we are really sitting at the table and we are producing next to this Codex work an IDF document that will complement the way this Codex guidance on different topics. So water is really important for sustainability. What else we did, just to show you a little bit on other topics that we do for our members, sometimes that you don't see things published, but doesn't mean that we are not working on them. Sometimes we produce material that is internal. You have, for example, this output from the IDF task force that it was done in 2020. It was the data comparison of milk and plant-based beverages. So we know that these are not equivalent products, but we provided scientific background documents for our members that they can find on the internet, as well as a communication framework on how the different countries could communicate around this, because then every country has a different way of communicating to their audience. And now we are working here on the right side, so also on ultra-processed foods. The countries are ranking foods based on their level of processing. And we have a position on the principles of classifying foods on the level of processing. And those things are available for our experts, so they can exchange between them. And then they can translate that science into something that is relevant for their national regulations, let's say, or to communicate with their national consumers. Just some further contributions that we do to sustainability. We have a new award since few years, 2-3 years. It's called the IDF International Dairy Innovation Awards. We called for submissions. So they were now closed at the end of June. And these new initiatives, they will have probably, some of them will win a prize and they will be given at the IDF World Dairy Summit in Santiago, Chile. But if you want to participate next year, if your country has done an innovation, there are different categories. On the dairy sector, you can apply for these awards and be one of the winners at the next IDF World Dairy Summit that will take place in the year after in New Zealand. As I said, we work also regionally, and we have a regional conference in Asia every year and a regional conference in Africa every year. And just a few weeks ago, 29th of May to 1st of June, we had a regional conference in Africa in Kigali, Rwanda. Was really a success. I think you could find a lot of information and press about this conference, and everyone was really excited. I think it's going to help drive the African dairy sector. And next year, the conference will take place in Zimbabwe. So if you want to know more about dairying in Africa, please attend the conference that will take place in Zimbabwe. The IDF head office also organizes thematic events, mostly to complement the science that is out there. Sometimes we find that we would benefit to having some scientific technical knowledge on specific topics. And this year we're offering a one-day virtual event on camelids opportunities on camelid dairy products Also, Codex Alimentarios had put an interest on this topic last year. So we will try to also cover some of these areas, also on food safety and everything more on products. So it's not going to be so much about environmental, but we will also, of course, cover the sustainability, but a lot about the products themselves. So I recommend you to attend if you want. It's going to be very interesting, and you will learn a lot of things about camelids, as well as, I think, increasing your contact network. And as I said, this year, the Idea of World Dairy Summit takes place in Chile, 2025 of 2025. We will try to also gather many of the countries around in Latin America that will be attending. And I think it will be a really good place to exchange science. So with that, I'm going to leave you here the last slide with the contact of the IDF. So feel free to ask us anything if you want to know more about IDF and the contribution to sustainability. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Maria. It was very detailed presentation about the role of IDF, global recognition and everything. So I think now this is open for the Q&A session, right? Anyone have any questions to be asked from Maria, please? Yes, I got one question, Maria, from one of the...
What types of funding opportunities are available through the IDF, and how frequently are these offered? What are the key priority areas for funding? Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to disappoint you, but there are some opportunities, but as a principle, IDF is actually a non-governmental organization that is, it's a non-profit organization. I'm going to tell you a bit. So the funding of IDF comes from the national committees. The countries that are members of IDF, they kind of pay a small fee to IDF based on their milk production figures that are published by the FAO. There's like few categories, but actually the contribution is rather small, I could say. So the volunteers of IDF, so all these experts, sometimes they do work on a volunteer basis. Now, I don't say that there are not opportunities offered. There are many opportunities in networking and also in being as a speaker, participation on panels, contribution to very key scientific papers. There is, for example, an initiative we have on, let's say, early career scientists. So scientists that have finished their latest degree, I think it's 3 years after the graduation date, they can apply for an award, and IDF then covers their financing to the conference, and they have an opportunity to speak. They get also a small economic compensation. So those are like the let's say opportunities. There's a lot of recognition, and I think for the career of those working in the dairy sector, IDF provides a big, it's more like a big opportunity than the economic perspective.
Thank you, Maria. Are there any questions from the audience? I think that the overall the role of this IDF is the voluntary agreements between interested parties, products, services, and processes, and also standardization, documentary consensus, and everything. I think in your presentation you have mentioned a lot of activities done by IDF. So I think for me it's really interesting to hear about the camelids dairy products. So it's is it the first time that you gonna do this this kind of different
we have a recurrent conference. It's called well, it's actually from milk from non-cow, let's say non-cow ruminants. So we used to cover sheep and goat and donkey and usually camelids, etc. So it will be only focused on camelids, and it was going to be the first time that we do something only focused on camelids. but yeah, we currently work also with other milk from other species, obviously, and we also do standards and technical work on milk from other species. Like we have now piece of work on somatic cell counting on goat milk, because that's like somatic cells don't reflect milk quality on goat milk. So yeah, there's very specific things for the different dairy animals.
Right. I think from 1903 to 2024, up to date, I think International Dairy Federation, you are doing a marvelous job. So now I think every standards going to par with Codex standards, ISO standards as well. So what is the I think everyone at the moment talking about greenhouse gas emissions. So what are the strategies that you have, implemented or do advise all dairy sector people how to minimize GH emission? So are there any specific
Okay, so what we said, like we have global challenges but very local solutions. It is not the same the strategies you're gonna put in place in Africa that you're gonna put in place here in Europe, like in the Netherlands. Completely different, right? So as I said, like in Africa or more developing countries, as I said, you need to put strategies in place to increase your farming productivity, animal health and welfare. So you will need to start raising calves early so that they achieve maturity earlier and they are well fed so they can start producing milk earlier. You'll need to look at the feed, you'll need to look at the water supply, eradication of diseases, heat stress, etc. That first, there's a big work there. I don't know, in developed areas, more like Europe, I don't know, let's say the Netherlands, where they are looking at other things of like, for example, how to account for breeding for lower methane cattle on the LCA. There are some countries that were looking obviously at this using additives that can work in certain situations if you have like indoor cattle. Yeah, things like that. So it's really depending on the local context.
Yes.
Your pressures, looking at the nitrogen, or for some people, it's more like even greenhouse gas emissions is not so important, but generally more focused on water.
Yeah, another question, Maria, we can see in the chat box. What are the most significant challenges and opportunities in accurately assessing the environmental impacts of livestock system using life cycle assessments, especially in the context of emerging sustainability standards and regional data limitations? So it's Anushka Bandar's question.
IDF luckily has produced this LCA methodology, and we are glad to say that has influenced, because we were the first, has influenced most of the calculators or anything that is around calculating the greenhouse gas emissions from the dairy sector. Most of them, they're based on our methodology. So even if you have different sustainability standards, usually that assessment is quite accurate, or the way the dairy sector is doing is like maybe one of the few sectors that can say that. Regional data limitations. Yes, we work a lot with the data that is provided by FAO. Countries, of course, they have their own data, and these countries can provide a much detailed, accurate results for assessing the environmental impacts of livestock. So yeah, sometimes the countries have to first be able to collect the data through farms or through programs, right? That's really, the data is always the challenge, I think. It's not so much on the level on the methodology, because this we can help. How to control enteric fermentation? Very simple. Well, what you mean? Well, there will be always enteric fermentation. I don't know, how do you want to control it? If you want, I guess you mean like to produce less methane. As I said, there's a breeding strategy that some countries are doing at the moment. So they are trying to breed for lower methane cattle. there is this thing of the additives that is a bit under testing because the trials that have been done at the moment are rather short. I think they are required only to put a 90-day trial for 3 90-day trials to be able to pass the market authorization. Different types of feed, obviously. Water buffalo milk is quite unique. What are specific research or development activities you're focusing on regarding water buffalo milk? I think if you look through the catalog of IDF, you will find something, but it's maybe rather old. Probably because the experts on water buffalo milk have not come to the IDF and said, we need new research on that, because that's how it works, right? If you're a member of IDF and you have some experts that are working on water buffalo milk, and they said, we actually need that for water buffalo milk. I don't know what water buffalo milk needs at the moment. You can just, let's say, pitch this topic to the IDF, to the international audience, and then we can try to see if that topic would be of interest for other countries and work further to develop the science on that specific topic. So you need to tell us what are your challenges. Yeah.
Yes, Maria, another question from the Q&A window. Duminda Jayaratna is asking, are there specific plans in place of the quantification of methane emission within the dairy sector? Additionally, considering mitigation practices, do we anticipate the need for localized or regional data quantified emissions data rather than relying solely on global level estimations? So
yeah, we are not actually collecting. IDF does not collect the data on emissions, but there are other organizations. I'm going to just name the Environmental Defense Fund. They have a program on dairy and focused on methane reduction, let's say. And I know they have like even assessment on methane globally through their satellites. So they have a lot of data, and also they have some new research, like quantifying, for example, the impact on animal health and welfare on emissions. So how much can you reduce methane or greenhouse gas emissions by improving animal health and welfare? So there are organizations that can complement the work of IDF. But yeah, we don't work with data as such. We are not data providers. We don't own the data. It's the countries who own that. So we just work on standards and methodology. We provide the science so people can then, with their data, assess things.
Okay. Any questions from the audience?
Otherwise, I hope you will promote IDF. If you want to know more, just contact us on a specific topic, and I am sure I am able to deep dive with you on the specific questions you might have. So there was a Dr. Asita here. He put me in contact with you. He can also probably help you with the questions or direct them to me. And we will be really happy to have more people from Sri Lanka participating in IDF.
Yeah, one new question came. Yeah. Adulterated powdered milk, about.
Is there any control over this kind of things by IDF? IDF does not control that, but we provide the standards. So we provide the standards so that this shouldn't be done, right? So if of course if people have not good intentions, they always find a way. But for trade, the standards of IDF are really solid. So when you want to trade them, they trade different countries, they need to apply the standards of the methods to check and test those products.
Exactly, that is one of the the weakest area of developing countries. So the market can be have a lot of unwanted stuff. Like in our country also, I'm not satisfied about the food security and the control measures. There are a lot of ways that we get inferior quality dairy products in the country all circulating. But it's up to the country, the management. They have to have kind of security measures to So minimize that
Yeah.
inclusion of things. Yes.
If it is adulterated, I mean, if it's not labeled and you're different producing a different type of product, you need to see the specific product, right?
Yes.
So yeah, of course, I think there is replacement with vegetable fat over milk fat in many products. Are these like following a standard? Is this product legal? It is possible. I think even infant formula has vegetable fat, right? But you just need to see, is this really an adulteration, or this is legal in certain products, or so yeah, IDF provides the standards to claim what you can claim as product.
Yes, I think audience, I think that there's one, I saw the wonderful area that we have to, contribute that Dairy Innovations Awards 2025, maybe not this time. Next year, we will be able to
Yeah.
apply because institutes, they are working on a lot of, product developments, novel ideas. Even in my department, we are doing a lot of dairy product developments. And I think that's kind of a wonderful idea that we can showcase new products to the world. So, Maria, when is possible to get the applications for the next year? This scheme.
Sorry, can you repeat the last part?
Yeah, when will be the advertising of the next year Dairy Innovation Awards ceremony?
The advertising.
Yeah.
I think it starts around April, May, something like that. And then you can submit usually until June. It depends on the timing on the idea when there is summit. Next year will be a little bit later. It will be in November because it will be in New Zealand. So it might be that it's a little bit later. But have a look. The best you can do, all of you, go to the IDEA website. I think somewhere in the bottom there's a stay informed or something like that. You can put your email, and you will receive not only these calls for innovation awards, etc. Every time there's a new publication or a new fact sheet, some free webinar that you can attend, the call for the Public Engineering Award students, etc. And you will get that info directly on your inbox. Also, there's like a little newsletter called the Idea World that we circulate with like the most relevant information for the dairy sector. Follow us also on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a very good platform for IDF.
Yeah.
There's a page there, we post a lot. And then I think secondary to that, there's of course Twitter and I think Facebook. I think we have some others. But yeah, LinkedIn is usually working a lot because we work with professionals and they are very active in that network.
Right. Are there any questions from the organizers? Avanti? Then Bandar, do you have any? I think I got one new idea about, first I think we need to have kind of national level symposium organized on the dairy sector. So first we organize that kind of national level and again get selected the most, the novel items, and then we can apply for the global world level Dairy Innovation Awards 2025. So that will be a wonderful idea if we, start as an initiative from this, the symposium. And
yeah, that's a wonderful idea. Yes, yes. And
yeah,
if you focus on a specific thematic,
yeah,
we can also send you a few experts from the IDF, those who have written publications, and they can give you a deep dive on some specific technical topic to inspire you. So yes, I really welcome that you to try to put the dairy sector together to talk about something. Yeah.
yeah. Thank you very much, Avanti. Actually, this is one of the, the very important lecture actually from this area because Maria is a scientific program manager in IDF. So having a brief, lecture from that official level, that body is it's a wonderful opportunity for Sri Lankans. And yeah, this is the first time actually I exposed to this, kind of, international level managerial presentation, and also I got some new ideas as well. Maybe we will be able to get in touch in future as well. And also, if there is no one more question there.
You can share the link to the recording. 20th of June, is that the idea water situation report focused on Chile? I think. I'll have a look because yes, so most of the webinars, that's why I said join online to this IDF website, because when the webinar is live, you have an opportunity to register. Sometimes for some of them, we give also the free video, but those that provide really good technical content, then they're only for the members of IDF. So that is why it's important to attend them live. So register to IDF News and attend them live, ask questions live, and sometimes the recording are not available. I'll check, but I am not 100% sure.
Rupa, is your question regarding cheese, right? Sweden and group, what strategies?
I don't have a
would
lot of
be-
experience in Sweden. Globally, what strategy is good to recommend for countries like Sri Lanka to improve local cheese production? I need to know more about local cheese production in Sri Lanka first to recommend you any strategies. I wouldn't dare to say anything. But write me an email and then maybe we can follow up on the background on the question, and I can also give you some other ideas. We work with many cheese producers. Obviously, we have even an event called the Cheese Science and Technology Symposium.
Yeah.
Last year was hosted in Norway. We're looking for a country that can host this next year. So yes, there is a lot of tips and knowledge shared on cheese.
Yeah, even at the moment, one of my students is working on mozzarella cheese, introducing new culture into the mozzarella cheese, and she's working on that. And there are a couple of dairy research going on at the moment in my department as well. Maybe in our country, annually we do a lot of research, so that's why I propose that we have to have kind of a platform to get everybody on board and discuss. So everyone, if there is no more questions, I think it's high time to wind up the session. Maria, thank you very much for joining and also giving spending your valuable time for us. And Sumali,
Yes, sir.
yes, Sumali, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, sir. So on behalf of the ISAE 2025 Organizing Committee, I extend my heartfelt gratitude to Dr. María Sánchez for sharing her valuable insights on International Dairy Federation and the global dairy sector's contribution to sustainability. We truly appreciate your time and expertise. And a special word of thanks goes to Dr. Hasita Priyashanta for coordinating and connecting us with Dr. Maria, helping make this session possible. And I would like to thank Professor Nilantaliyanage for expertly moderating today's session. Your contribution was invaluable in making this event success. And to all our participants, thank you for joining us. We hope this session was insightful and beneficial to you all. And a big thank you also to everyone who worked behind the scene to ensure the smooth event. And before we conclude, a quick reminder, e-certificates will be issued via the Lanka Education and Research Network through the Micro Rewards platform. Once ready, you will receive an email at the address provided during the registration. And our next pre-symposium webinar is scheduled for 10th July, and we invite you all to join that webinar as well. And also we encourage you to stay connected with us through our website and social media platforms for updates and more details. So once again, thank you all, and we look forward to meet you again soon in next webinar. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.